Med bachelor i interaktive medier spill vil du få en praktisk, anvendbar og attraktiv kompetanse som gir deg en verdifull start på din spillkarriere. Utdanningen lærer deg å designe og programmere interaktiv innhold til spill og virtuell virkelighet på tvers av bransjer. Husk å sikre studieplass på noroff.no.
How to increase your damage in Hypixel Skyblock. It's probably one of the most commonly asked questions. Dealing damage has always been important in Hypixel Skyblock because of features like dungeons, mini-bosses and so on. Now simply hitting something and doing damage, it seems pretty simple on face value, but if you're a newer player, you'll understand that it's not so easy. It's not so simple just because there are so many different components that will basically decide how much damage you deal. It's pretty mental. Now, majority of people who are watching this video are going to know that if you have a better weapon, it will do more damage. If you have better armor, it will do more damage. If you have a better pet, it will do more damage. I feel like even people who haven't played Skyblock before could probably guess this. So I'm going to be going over the less obvious things that you can do to increase your damage that people may be missing out on. So first of all, we've got accessories and power stones. Ridiculously important. So for those of you who don't know, an accessory or a talisman is basically a relic that can be kept in your accessory bag and give you stat buffs. Now you can pick up very basic accessories at the Adventurer near the Bazaar. You can buy these talismans here, they're very cheap. At the same time, there's accessories that aren't so cheap. So essentially, the amount of accessories you have and the rarity of accessories at the Adventurer near the Bazaar. You can buy these talismans here, they're very cheap. At the same time, there's accessories that aren't so cheap. So essentially, the amount of accessories you have and the rarity they are combined towards your power level. As you can see, my magical power here is 876. And my magical power will determine how much of a buff my power stone gives me. Now you may ask, what is a power stone? Well, if you come over to Maxwell here at the hub, click on him, he gives you some basic power stones that you can use in order to get some better stats. Now power stones like Hurtful, Bloody, and I think, is it Sighted? Yep, Sighted. These are not basic power stones, so you'll essentially need to learn the power stone in order to be able to use it. Now, to do that, you need 9 identical power stones. Now, you can earn these power stones, depending on which the power stone is, from all over Skyblock. Alternatively, you can buy them from the Bazaar. I'm sorry if you're an Iron Man. In the Bazaar, you can head over to the power stones, and from here, you'll be able to choose which one you'd like to buy. Remember, you'll need 9 of these, so it can become quite expensive. Now, some power stones are better than others, obviously some are cheaper than others, and they all give you different stat buffs. For instance, this is just completely random. The Magma Urchin, if we click into this, we'll be able to see what it actually does. So at 1000 magical power, it will give you 155 strength and 620 crit damage. Whereas the Endermolecule gives you the Sighted Reforge, which at 1000 magical power gives you 1163 intelligence. Also gives you +3 ability damage. Obviously this would be great for if you play mage, but not so great if you weren't playing mage. Anyway, as I said before, you'll need to buy 9 of these to actually learn the power stone. Silky doesn't really have much use, I don't really have much use for it, but it's very cheap, so I'll just give you an example of how to actually do it. So if we go ahead and buy 9, it is very cheap. And head back over to Maxwell, click on Learn Power Stones, and we just basically shift click all of these into the crafting bench. Click Learn Power Stone, and now if we go back into here, we can now unlock Silky. We've got it there. It's not great, but we've got Silky. So depending on your Skyblock stats, you'll need to determine which one is best for you, and to be honest, I can't really do that for everyone. So when deciding on a power stone, essentially if you're a mage, then go for Sighted or Fortuitous, you get that for free. If for instance you have a Juju short bow, obviously you want some attack speed, so maybe you want something that buffs your attack speed. At the same time, you want to try and damage your crit damage and strength. That's how you will get optimum damage. As you can see here, my crit damage is 310, my strength is 429, so I'd probably want something that gives me more of a crit damage buff than a strength buff in order to balance these out. Anyway, in addition to accessories, you can also purchase enriched From the community. Have you ever wondered why people do more damage than you? You may have the same weapon, same armor pieces, same pet, and even similar magical power with the same power stone. Yet you still seem to lack in the damage department in comparison to other players. Now there are a few different stats that people don't understand or don't pay enough attention to, and that's your bonus attack speed, and also strength and crit damage balance. When it comes to bonus attack speed, the figures most definitely differ between melee weapons and bows. But bonus attack speed is a lot more simple than it might sound. And just to say it as simple as possible, the more bonus attack speed you have, the less cooldown you have in between arrow shot or hits, essentially meaning that you can do more damage per second. For example, if you're killing the magma boss, and your bonus attack speed only allows for you to shoot one arrow per second, and somebody else stood next to you has the exact same gear as you, except they have an attack speed that allows them to hit twice per second, then of course they're going to deal double damage, even though they have the same gear. And you can see the increments right here. The more bonus attack speed you have with melee weapons, of course, the time and the cooldown in between each hit reduces. For melee weapons, there's no point in going any higher than 82 because 82 basically wields you the maximum output. As for short bows, it changes a little bit. I mean, by all means still, the more bonus attack speed you have, the more DPS you do, the less the cooldown is between arrows. But you should go to 100% bonus attack speed when you're using a bow. As you can see, this is going to yield you the maximum results, allowing you to hit every 0.2 seconds, which is of course 5 per second. You might be thinking, oh well, how am I going to get 100% bonus attack speed? Now, it's important to mention that certain items and weapons straight up give you bonus attack speed as a perk. For instance, a Liver Dagger is going to give you a base 50% bonus attack speed just for using the weapon. What you really want to utilise is your stats tuning and your tuning points. Now, of course, you know, when you're using like a melee weapon, Now, of course, you know, when you're using like a melee weapon, you're gonna probably want to go for something like Hurtful, something that's going to give you a lot of strength and also crit damage. If you're using a bow, you probably want to stay on the same thing, unless you're using a Terminator. Of course, you'd have a lot less crit chance, so you've got to make up for that by using the Power Stone that gives you crit chance. But you've got a big issue though, because your bonus attack speed might be really low, considering at the moment you've not really got anything that's increasing it. Stats tuning, you know, can really help you out there. You can cover, you can clear your points, you can allocate points to any different stat, and of course one of them is bonus attack speed. For instance, if I put all of my tuning points into bonus attack speed, that's an extra 36.9%, which is quite substantial. Of course, you don't have to put all of your points into bonus attack speed if you don't need to, but that's basically it for bonus attack speed. Like I mentioned, two people could have identical gear, one person has slightly more bonus attack speed than the other, and could potentially just double the damage. Obviously not per hit, but per second. Anyway, moving on.
Vi har känt på det. Längselen till ögonblick av
speed, and attack speed also factors into your damage because you're able to swing faster, get more hits off, and as a result, do more DPS. So hopefully that... So what actually contributes to dealing damage in Hypixel Skyblock? Why is it so complicated, and what are the important things you need to be aware of to effectively scale your damage as you progress through the game? To fully understand Skyblock's damage scaling at a basic level, let's compare it to something everyone's familiar with: the vanilla Minecraft damage system. In vanilla Minecraft, increasing your damage is very simple, consisting of basic weapon upgrades, enchants, and in some cases, potion effects. Skyblock, on the other hand, is a lot more complicated than this. For starters, your weapon only contributes to around 20 to 30% of the damage you deal, and while enchants and potion effects also contribute to your damage numbers, there are so many more factors that come into play which simply don't exist in vanilla. The most fundamental of them are critical hits, which if you've played any form of combat game in the past, you'll know that crits deal significantly more damage than a regular hit does. Optimizing for a 100% crit chance is actually very achievable when playing Hypixel Skyblock, so this is absolutely one of the most important things to note when increasing your damage. Another crucial statistic for damage scaling is your strength stat, which is effectively just a damage multiplier for both your normal and your critical attacks. Both the strength and crit damage stats are the major influences to how much damage you'll actually deal, and keeping these as close to a 1-to-1 ratio is what you should always be aiming for when optimizing your damage. Since the strength and crit damage stats are so important, this makes knowing how to increase them equally as important. There are actually so many different ways that this can actually be achieved, but I'll be covering the most significant and impactful ones in today's video, being weapons, armor, all reforged types, skills, and pets. Now, I could continue on with this voiceover explanation of how each of these factors contribute to your damage, but I figured it'd be much easier if I hopped in-game right now and actually showed you how it all works. Alright, so I'm here in-game now on a brand new profile with no skills, no talismans, no nothing, and the reason I've done this is because I want to show you guys exactly how your damage scales depending on what you actually add to your profile. So what I have here is an aspect of the end, and as you can see, I have it all maxed out with all the enchants I could get on it. I have a reforge on it, but aside from that, I've got nothing else. Now, right off the bat, you can tell that a lot of these enchants are grayed out, and that simply means that I'm not a high enough enchanting level to actually use them. This is going to be very important for these damage tests, because on a profile with no skills or nothing on it, you are going to be very limited in what you can use, and as a result, it's actually going to affect your damage quite a bit. So now that we have that out of the way, I'm going to go ahead and hit some of these zombies in the hub to show you guys what my damage numbers actually look like, and as we go on with this video, I'm going to add more and more profile upgrades to show you exactly how the damage scales, and that way you should get a better understanding of how scaling your damage works in this game. So if I make my way over to this zombie right here and get one hit off, I did about 518 damage, and that was a critical hit, but that one right there was only 273 damage and it wasn't a critical hit. Just to get a few more numbers here, 518 damage with a crit, 273 without. We did 273 without a critical there, and then 273 once again without a critical hit. Now, the fact that I didn't crit every single time is very important because, as I mentioned in the introduction, being able to optimize your crit chance to be 100% all the time is very important, as you should only be doing critical hits inside of this game, and you should never see those gray numbers when you are attacking mobs. Because I am on a brand new profile, I only have a crit chance of 44%, and my crit damage is only 90%, although my strength and crit damage ratio here is actually pretty good. I have 100 strength to 90% crit damage, and as I mentioned earlier, you want to get as close to a 1-to-1 ratio as possible. But now that I've shown you guys a damage test on this fresh brand new profile, I'm going to go ahead and hop on my second profile that actually has a couple of skills leveled, and that way I can show you guys how skill level ups actually change your damage quite a bit. Alrighty, so I've gone ahead and swapped over to another profile now, and I'm going to do the exact same thing as I did before. I have no armor on, I've got no equipment, and I have the exact same weapon as before. The only difference here is that none of these enchants are grayed out, and the reason for that is because this profile is enchanting 60, and as a result, I have unlocked every enchant in this game and can use them on whatever weapons and armor I choose. This is obviously going to have an impact on the damage, as I am going to showcase right now, and on top of that, I am also combat 23, which gives me a 92% damage increase to all mobs in Hypixel Skyblock. So now I'm going to go ahead and do a damage test using the same weapon, but this time I'm going to have skills factoring in. I don't have any talismans, I have no armor, and I've got no pets. So if we go ahead and hit any zombie in the hub right here, getting one hit on this guy will do a whopping 831 damage without a crit. If I hit this guy, we're doing 2000 damage with a critical hit. And just for good measure, if I hit this guy, we do once again 2000 damage with a critical hit. So there you have it. The difference between a damage test with no skills and a damage test with skills is pretty dramatic. We went from doing 500 damage crits to 2000 damage crits, and if you can't do simple maths, that is a 4 times damage increase. But now that I've shown you how skills actually influence your damage, I'm going to go ahead and throw on some armor now, and I'll show you guys how armor actually influences your damage in this game. So for this test, it doesn't really matter what armor set I pick. I'm going to go ahead and just use this ridiculously maxed out superior set that I've had in my wardrobe for a while, and the reason for this is because it actually has quite a few stats that I can show you guys, and I'll explain how all of these will actually influence my damage. So to go back to the skills talk to explain a little bit better how the skills influence my damage, if I look at the combat skill here, at level 23, I am dealing 92% more damage to all mobs on the island. Now, on top of this, every single one of these level ups will give me a 0.5% crit chance, which, as you guys know, you can optimize for 100% crit chance in this game, and the more crit chance, the higher chance you have at actually getting a critical hit. Critical hits are obviously the ones that do the most damage in the game, so if you're able to crit every single time, that is really, really good. So that's why skills are very important to actually scaling your damage in Hypixel Skyblock. Now, the way that armor buffs your damage in this game is kind of similar to skills, but also not really. So if I take a look at the base stats of, say, the Superior Dragon Helmet, you can see here that the Superior Helmet gives me plus 10 strength, plus 2% crit chance, and also plus 10% crit damage. Now, it also has those other stats at the bottom there, but those aren't going to influence my damage, so I'm going to ignore them for the time being. Now, that extra plus 10 strength, crit chance, and crit damage is very useful, and when you factor in the chest plate, the leggings, and the boots as well, that brings us up to a total of plus 4. Strength, plus 8% crit chance, and plus 40% crit damage. This is kind of similar to the combat skill, which gives me a 92% damage increase to mobs. It also provides a 0.5% crit chance per level that I have. So if you factor in what I get from the combat skill, and then you factor in what I get from the Superior Dragon set, this should increase my damage by a fair bit. Now, if we take a look at my Superior set specifically, it's going to look a lot different to a simply clean one. I have the Renowned Reforge on this armor set, and I'm going to go into a little bit more detail on Reforges later in the video, but the Renowned Reforge brings the strength all the way up to plus 23, the crit chance to 14.2%, and the crit damage up to 23%. Now, I have Renowned on all of my armor pieces here, so every single one of them is going to get the same buff. So as you can see, this armor set actually provides a lot of different boosts. It has strength and crit damage boosts, like I mentioned earlier on in the video. It has a bunch of other quality of life things. It's got more EHP, more mana, more speed, and even attack speed. And attack speed also factors into your damage because you're able to swing faster, get more hits off, and as a result, do more DPS. So hopefully that makes a lot of sense here. This armor set is buffing my damage by quite a bit here. If I go ahead, use the exact same weapon from before, I've not changed anything. The enchants are the same, the reforge is the same, all the damage numbers are the same. And if I make my way over to these zombies right here to get some damage numbers off, I'm going to be doing 4.4 thousand damage, 4.3 thousand damage, 4.3 thousand, 4.3 thousand, 4.4 thousand, and 4.3 thousand damage. So as you can see, just throwing on this simple armor set has effectively doubled my damage entirely. I went from 2,000 damage crits to 4,400 damage crits, and not to mention, when I wear this full set and hold this weapon, I have a 100% crit chance, which means I will never do any less than that. If we look at the strength and crit damage numbers here too, I have 250 strength and 260% crit damage. And like I said in the introduction, a 1-to-1 crit damage to strength ratio is what you want to aim for. And we are once again definitely nailing that right here. But nonetheless, the armor definitely plays a major role in how much damage you can deal in Hypixel Skyblock. Obviously, this is mostly due to the fact that this armor is buffing my strength and crit damage numbers, but there are some other things that are factoring in, which are contributing to how much damage I'm dealing in this game. So now for the third damage test here, I have the full Superior Dragon set in play. I'm going to be using the exact same skills from before, the same weapon as I started with, but now I'm going to factor in my talismans. And talismans are a very interesting part of this game. So while I was testing without my talismans, I've left them in my backpacks here, and for any new players, you probably will have no idea what any of this means. Now, at first glance, if I just look at any of the stats from these, the Lava Talisman here, it provides immunity against damage from lava, and while I'm on the Crimson Isle, I get 20% damage reduction instead. That doesn't seem anything revolutionary, but once you figure out that there's a thing called the talisman or the accessory bag in Skyblock, this is where they start to get very interesting. If I open up this accessory bag and I throw in a bunch of these different talismans I have right here, and then once I close the accessory bag and show you guys what happens, you can see that by simply adding a bunch of different accessories, I now have 319 magical power, and with my selected power being the warrior, I get 41 health, 15 defense, 103 strength, 29 crit chance, and 73 crit damage. Basically what's happening here is all of these different accessories, while they individually have different abilities, the Campfire God Badge here will heal me 60 health per second while I'm burning, and I can also heal 10 hearts per second anywhere that I go. This talisman, along with this one, and everything else in my bag, is contributing to what's called magical power, and the higher that magical power, the stronger the buffs I actually get from the reforges. Now, if you recall from earlier, I did mention reforges on my armor, and my superior set in particular is using the Renowned Reforge. You can pretty much do the exact same thing with your accessories or your talismans, however, it behaves a little bit differently. If I talk to the Thaumaturgist here, just an NPC in the Skyblock hub, when you open his menu, you have a ton of different powers that you can actually select. Now, generally speaking, the warrior power is the best starter power for damage specifically. I'm going to be using this one in today's video.
You no longer want to be that level 69 dude in the lobbies getting laughed at by the later stage players for your damage. Well, good, so you should. I'm going to show you 5 key factors you need to look at when it comes to damage and why you aren't good enough. And no, it's not a skill issue, it's a knowledge issue. Quickly before the video, we are trying to reach 1,000 subscribers by the end of the month. If we can do it, I will be hosting the Hypixel Skyblock Olympics where one person will be winning 50 million coins. Make sure to subscribe for a chance to play. So damage on Hypixel Skyblock is complicated and broken up into multiple subdivides like crit chance, crit damage, strength, attack speed, furiosity and more. However, since this is an early game guide, we will rule out the categories that you don't need to worry about just yet. Crit chance is a number ranging from 1 to 100%. This number will tell you the likeliness of your hit being a critical hit. You can locate this and the rest of the stats that we're about to go into on your stat profile by clicking on the Never Star in slot 9 and hovering over your character in the middle. At all times, you will want this number to be 100% so you are dealing the highest amount of damage you can deal. Crit damage indicates by how much your damage is multiplied by when landing a critical hit. Finally, strength is a number which roughly gives +1 damage per 5 strength you have. There is a full formula for you to look at if that's what you like, so I will leave it in the description for you down below. However, the key takeaway is so that crit chance needs to be as high as possible, preferably 100. Crit damage and strength affect your damage drastically. Another key tip is to try and keep crit damage and strength as balanced as possible for the most amount of damage. Now you know how your damage is broken down, let's talk about the 5 ways you can improve your damage. Armor is a very important part when it comes to Skyblock as it is the core protector of everything. It is what grants you the most health, damage and survivability, so you don't want to cheap out on it and try and cut corners and continue running around in lapis armor. Now let's look at what some good armor sets are and why they are good. First off, you should be working harder and getting to the end so you can start working on your full set of ender armor. However, once you reach the end, you are going to need to be doing around 3000 damage. So the first piece of armor to be wearing before your first set of end armor is going to be rotten armor. This set is dropped from mobs within dungeons and the stats are quite good for early game players, providing a chance. Pets are a very useful and overlooked item of the game in the earlier stage, but for me there is one clear winner when it comes to early game damage pet, and you can get it for as cheap as 25k coins. If you haven't guessed, it is the Griffin pet. This pet boosts your strength, crit damage, crit chance, intelligence and magic find. Those are some amazing stats. A common level 100 Griffin will provide you with plus 25 strength, plus 10 intelligence, plus 10 crit chance, plus 10 magic find and plus 50 crit damage. This would be the pet I would recommend to all early game players to be using if you are having issues with damage. Now for the boring news. Foraging matters when it comes to damage, especially for early game. It is painful, we all understand, however getting your foraging up to level 10 will gain you an extra 10 strength. It is slow and painful, however leveling up your combat and foraging skill will help deal more damage, especially combat, as for every level you do level up, you'll deal an extra 4% damage to every single mob. Picking the right weapon is like finding a key in a box with 1,000 for one door. There are many weapon options, but there are some that are clear winners. For an early starting sword, you should be using the undead sword from the weaponsmith. For 100 coins you could be getting plus 30 damage but also 100% damage increase to all undead mobs. This is amazing, and when you fully enchant it, it will be great early options. Once you venture to the end, you will want to be picking up the end sword and enchanting that to deal the most damage to the enderman there. A recommendation, once you can afford the aspect of the end, to buy one, as it deals good stats, and also the teleportation is different. And a clear winner once you have the money is the aspect of the dragons. One of the most important parts of damage, if not the most important, is your accessories. Have redstone minions on your island because you need to fill up that accessory bag. You can scratch many of the